Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. I'd just like to take a moment to tell you about a book that I've written. It's a memoir called Fool Me Twice, and it's a story about my life with a focus on my journey internet dating, where I was scammed and injured in the process. It's an educational book that will help many other people not to get caught in the same trap that I was. I'd like to also take this opportunity to play my book promo for you. Here it is.
From life on a farm in rural Australia, where wide open spaces made a young woman yearn to know what was beyond her country town. She moved to the city, became a mother, and found her dream career which took her across the world. But still, something was missing. In her search for love, she traveled far, trusted deeply. She wanted so badly to find someone that she almost lost herself in the process and learned some hard lessons along the way. Fool Me Twice, a new memoir by Jules Hannaford. Available August 20th on Amazon.
Hi everybody, I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm here today with Kinny. She is the head of partnerships at Magnetic Asia. She is one of the organisers of Clockenflap, which is a huge festival that we have in Hong Kong. And it's really great to have you here. Thanks for coming, Kinny.
Thanks for having me, Juice. Hello, everyone.
So, Kinny, tell me a bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up?
I am born and bred, raised in Hong Kong. And so I was born in Hong Kong.
And did you go to school in Hong Kong?
Yes. Until I finished A-levels, and then I went to the UK for university. But most of my life were in Hong Kong.
What was school like for you when you were a child?
School was fun. And although I know that lots of people will be saying the education system in Hong Kong is very hard and especially lots of pressure to children. But I think I'm one of those just simply like doing good, and whatever system that fall onto me, and I'll try my best to do. And so it was fun. And I guess another reason is also because where we grew up, we were in the countryside 40 something years ago. So it was very, very different. And I did have a very good childhood in Hong Kong.
What was school like? Did you have classes like drama or art or PE and things like that? Or was it more sort of the sciences and the maths and Chinese, I guess?
Well, let's just say that there's not much fun in terms of subject in the local system. It's very, very academic. Of course, we have PE, music, drama, art, but very, very minimal. And they don't really encourage you to really explore it in those kind of less academic subjects anyway.
When you went off to high school, what was that like for you?
High school was challenging. I guess, it's challenging for everyone when you get to that age. You're a teenager and then you're trying to fit into different social group and things like that. But I guess my upbringing in comparison with very traditional Chinese family was actually very different. So how I interact with people and my sense of value probably very different. But back then I didn't know why am I different. And in the academic side, it was absolutely fine, but socially it was challenging.
You say that you were different other Chinese kids. How were you different? How did you recognize that at such a young age? And how were you different?
I think without analyzing it with my brain now at this age and try to remember back then, it was more like questioning myself why things that I like are so different from my peer. interests and again, the sense of value, how we see things were very, very different. And then when you are teenage from 12 to 15 and all you can see the difference is from why am I not in the main group?
The cool kids.
Yeah, the cool kids or the popular group. And I found myself either by myself or with very small number of friends, or most likely I'll be hanging out with boys rather than girls because boys, it's easy. If there's a game playing, I just need to join in and then there you go with your friends. But in terms of socializing, just purely socializing, I see the difference from there.
Did you have different interests to other girls your age? What were they?
I think, let's just say back then, I was already very, very into music and very broad kind of music type as well. None of my friends want to talk about music. None of my friends were interested, or they'll be very typically following the pop music and then the idols and those type. And then so when I want to join in the conversation, I felt like I'm in a completely different world, or they probably will look at me and questioning, what are you talking about?
Oh, that's so interesting. And did you speak Cantonese as your first language?
Yes.
And can you speak Mandarin?
Yes, I can.
And did you learn that at school?
Yes, from primary school. And then from then on, I sort of stopped the official Mandarin training because I fell in love with Mandarin songs. So I learned Mandarin from the songs that I listened to and then learned from the lyrics. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Can you speak a little bit of Cantonese for me? Could you say, hi, everybody, great to have you here at International Podcast Day? I bet you say International Podcast in English. Go on, say it.
喂，大家好啊！咁啊，歡迎你哋嚟到 International Podcast Day 嘅 podcast 啦。You just need to add la in the end.
Yeah, I know. I got that when I got to Hong Kong, that you just add a la and then people will understand you. Okay, la. How are you, la?
Yes, how are you, la?
So could you say the same thing again in Mandarin so people can hear the difference, or Putonghua as it's called?
I can try. 大家好，欢迎来到 International Podcast Day.
Oh,
awesome. It's basically saying, hope you like it.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. Oh. Kenny, how many siblings have you got in your family?
I only have one elder brother and not much older than me, which is only 11 months apart.
What's the expectations on the children in a Chinese family? What was it like for your brother as a child? And then was it different for you as a girl, or was it the same?
Quite different. I mean, for my immediate family, my mum and dad and my brother and me, not much difference because, as I mentioned earlier, they are quite different Chinese parents. But I see the difference for my bigger family and say like my mum's side of the family and then my dad's side of the family. And you know it because even like who's going to get the drink first and then who's going to get the bowl of rice first. And then there are the difference and you have to sort of follow to show your respect.
Does the son get the drink and the bowl of rice first?
Of course, yes.
Is that because there's more value placed on having a male child in Chinese culture?
Yes, indeed. I think more and more so nowadays it's not so important. But then back then it was already a lot more relaxed. But there are still some fundamental, maybe I won't say rules, but practice. And then you just naturally fall into it. And then it's still based on boys are more important. They need to be better equipped for their job, for the world. Girls, I mean, at least in my grand's mindset, and they're still expecting, oh, girls just going to find a husband and, you know, they're not going to do much in their life.
Do they feel then that girls don't need as much of an education and they don't have to have so much of a career focus?
Back then, yes. I remember probably about 5 or 6 years old, and then I was questioning my dad and how come my brother has got Catholic name that you get Christianized and then you'd be giving a special name.
Yeah.
And I got one too, but I got it only from my dad, but not actually officially from the church. So from these kind of little things, and then it really shows that they would only allow boys to do certain things. But again, this is more from my grand's generation. It's still, you know, holding very tight. If it comes down to my mum and dad's generation or their siblings, and they're already a lot more relaxed in comparison from my family and then my uncle and auntie's family and my cousins. I could still see a big difference, what they expect from their children, boys and girls.
So do you mean even now you can see a difference in your cousins? Yes. So some are more, would we say, traditional, and then some are more free thinking?
Yes, definitely. I would say that my mum and dad, they're always in the middle. And my mum and dad's siblings, that they are all still very traditional. not so much in the practical life practice, but then the value or mindset in their head. When it comes to family decision, then you will see the difference and where they come from. Why would they insist on making certain decisions? And these things would show still.
Would you say that you have been able to change the way that your parents think as you've grown up, and have they become a little bit more less traditional in the way that they look at male and female roles within the family, or do you think they're still quite traditional?
My parents, I always say they're quite cool, and then they quite like to move on with what's happening in the world. And of course, not the pace that we are doing, but they're very up for new things. And then also they're very open to look at what we are doing, like me and my brother. Say, I don't think they would ever expect to see there's a career for me from their daughter. But when they see it, they're really, really proud, instead of discouraging it or thinking that, oh, why are you working so hard? You should be at home and be with your children. And so they move on.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
You have 2 children. You have 2 boys. How do you instill Chinese cultural traditions or Chinese values within them? But you're married to a Westerner. How do you balance that Western and Chinese cultural mix in the family?
To me, actually, it's quite easy, and you just be witty about it, and then you see the good things, and then you take it and you use it, you practice it. So to me, there's not so much of East and West or Chinese or Westerner kind of culture. It's you observe what is better for your children, and then you pick on those kind of tips or those kind of practice, and then you use it.
We've got a message here from Steph in Shanghai, and she says there's lots of talk about Hong Kong's future with the mainland China. What changes have you noticed so far? What have you noticed really since the handover and China took Hong Kong back?
There are lots of things. There's lots of changes. And then, of course, you kind of expected you will gradually see more and more of the changes. But to me, so far, I can understand and appreciate, and I do follow a lot of changes and people's opinions as well. However, I don't focus on too much what the government's doing or in terms of policy that is changing. Also, it's more how is it changing people's life and not just focusing on one country or one place policy. At the end of the day, now everything is globalized. And
yeah. And look, I've been here 18 years and I haven't seen that much change really in the last 18 years. But China don't fully take Hong Kong back until 50 years after the handover in 90. Come on, when was it? Was it 97?
Yeah.
97. Yoo-hoo, I got it. So we might see more change when the 50 years is up.
Yes, but at the same time, if you look around and globally, everything is changing. And whether it's good or bad and positive or negative, there's so much changing. But of course, this is your hometown and then you're focusing what's affecting your life and all that. But it just personally, I don't focus on too much what China is doing to Hong Kong, because whether the handover never happened, Brexit, how if we're still the British colony, what's going to affect Brexit is going to affect Hong Kong. That can be another whole set of changes that worries people. We're just going to keep on pushing forward.
Yeah, just keep on pushing forward. Yeah. So back to your family, do you feel that it's important for your kids to have an understanding of sort of the Chinese holidays and the traditions and things like that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least a very fundamental understanding of why people doing this. Why do we have this holiday? It's not a free day for you to just off school or off work. At least you should know.
And what's one of your favorite Chinese holidays that we celebrate?
Chinese New Year.
Yeah, Chinese New Year is fab, isn't it? Yeah. It's so great. It's a celebration for the new year with the Chinese calendar and the Chinese horoscope. What Chinese horoscope are you?
Dragon.
What does that mean? Do you know?
Well, apparently that these things can get very complicated as well. And then I thought, I was born in this year, then I'm a dragon. But then the more you find out, and then turns out that I am a fire dragon. And whereas my uncle, he's also a dragon, but he's an earth dragon. And then it changes your personality and all kinds of things.
Oh, okay. I'm a snake.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know what that means.
You can hop on my back and we can fly to the sky.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kinny. Thanks for the lift. Do you have any struggles as a teenager or a child? Did you face any difficulties growing up in Hong Kong?
Yes, I gently touched at the challenge during the teenage time. On one hand, looking back now, I'm really, really grateful for the parents that I have, and being Chinese and living in Hong Kong, grew up in Hong Kong. But I can't help to also think or feel like that I'm quite isolated or lonely, because I still treasure who I am and how I think and everything that my parents influence. But it does, because when you are kind of a minority, whether you are good or bad or anything, when you have that anxiety and questioning yourself, am I weird? Especially when you're that age. And then
because you didn't quite fit in, you felt a bit isolated and different.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And did you have anyone to talk to or support you through that time? Were you able to talk to your parents about this, or did you just get on with it?
I am very, very close with my parents and my brother as well. And so we are very tight, and we do talk about anything. And there's no boundaries and things that we cannot talk to each other about. Thankfully that they are, especially my dad, and he's a very straightforward and no nonsense kind of person. So when I talked about these things with him, instead of just, he just analyzed it in a very matter of fact way. That's okay. So this is not going to really affect you in the future. This is just gearing you up to be a stronger person and dealing with all kinds of people. And I guess that's also play a big part of what I'm doing now in my career, that I have to face a lot of people. And it doesn't matter that you have very different thinking.
Yeah. And that's really a great message for everybody. It's okay to be different. And there's places that you can find your tribe. And you've done that as you've gotten older. You've been able to find groups of people, haven't you? Like people who have an interest in music. And here you are, one of the organisers of our biggest music festival in Hong Kong called Clockenflap. Do you feel like you found your sort of friendship group as you got older in your teens, or did it take until in your 20s?
I think taking into my early 20s, when I really sort of found myself or understand who I am and be comfortable about who I am. And then I think in my early 20s, I would just feel like more at ease to explore the world and not so much calculating or being anxious about how people feel about me, and basically just way more comfortable with myself.
Oh, that's awesome. And just on the chat, we've got Stephanie and Nanora chatting about what Chinese horoscope they are. So thanks for getting involved, girls. It's great to see a pig and a Gemini. No, that's the other one. Tell me a little bit about the expectations on children to look after their parents when they're older in Chinese culture.
Oh, that's a big thing in not just Chinese, but also quite Asian thing that, your senior from a very, very young age, which I still respect very much, that how you greet your senior, whether it's friends or real family, relatives, and then how you should be thinking about yourself, developing yourself, but never forget where you come from. And then never forget that these people, that one day you'll have to return the support, big or small. And I'm lucky. I don't have any pressure from my parents that I must do certain things. That seed is still planted into our culture in our head that's very important. At least one day we'll be able to contribute or support our family, our parents, our senior.
It's very interesting because that's kind of leads to, in Chinese culture, the families sort of stay together. The parents don't go into old folks' homes, sort of get put into aged care, do they? The family takes care of them on a financial and a social and an emotional level as well. And that's something that's quite different, certainly to most people in Australian culture. Mm-hmm. Is that how it is in Chinese culture?
Yes, there's still a very, very strong expectation, or I wouldn't even call it an expectation because it's very automatic that you will do. And some friends of mine, they will change their career and then to be closer to the Chinese parents when they get older, just to be able to look after them. And one of my very close friends, she had a huge career really taken off in Shanghai. But knowing that his dad wasn't doing too well, and then she just basically stopped that and moved back to Hong Kong. And also she has other siblings as well. But then everyone feels as strong that, we have to take turns and look after dad.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And Nanora is saying that that's the same for her in Indian culture as well.
Oh, yes, I agree.
They take care of the parents and really look after them. And it's expected of them, but they're fine with it and they just go with the flow. And I think we do to a certain extent in Western culture, but I don't think it's on the same level.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. And to be honest, and some of my cousins, sometimes they moan at me and said, oh, you're lucky,
Why? Because your parents don't have that,
they don't
pressure
have
on you.
That pressure. And then, we're still being given this number to hit every month and then to give them the money and the support.
But you still help them anyway, don't you? Even though the expectation's not on you,
Yes,
you still help them.
Yes, I do. And then I don't see it as help. And that, I guess that's the difference in the culture. We don't see it as help or support at all. It's just something that you do. Once you start making your own money, and then, of course, if you have a stable career, then you just do it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that it just shows how connected and how important family is in Chinese culture. And I think that's a really lovely aspect of the culture.
Yes.
So that's one thing that you've brought from your childhood forward with you into adulthood. What other aspects of Chinese culture have had a big impact on you, even though you're quite westernized in the way that you operate and certainly the way that you interact socially? And I mean, you fit in both worlds, don't you, very easily? What aspects of Chinese culture have you brought forward with you?
I don't think there is anything particular that I can say, but then it's just in your day in, day out practice. One thing that I can say that is more obvious is how I bring up my children. And I guess Western culture probably go a lot more easy to, with their children, and then talks a lot and then practice a lot about freedom. But I'm not saying that, the Chinese way is the complete opposite, whereas a lot of people think that it's all very tight and very straight to their children. There's some values that it's quite different from the Western practice. And not saying right or wrong, but I would prefer my children grow up this way, particularly like sense of value and how you respect senior and just respect people who actually know better than you do when you were little. Then it's things that you can choose to put into your pocket for the rest of your life or put it away, but you still have to respect that people are trying to give you advice.
Were you pressured to do academically really well, and do you put that same sort of pressure on your children?
No, I don't have that pressure from my parents either, but it was more me, myself, because my brother was rubbish at school. I hope that he's
Sorry,
not
brother,
listening.
if you're listening.
Yeah, Kath, I hope you don't kill me after this, but you were. And it was more the pressure of myself that seeing that, okay, we've only got 2 kids in our family. And if he's doing rubbish, and at least one of us has to, try harder. And I don't have that kind of pressure. So naturally, I don't give the same pressure to my children, but I do explain why it's important. But then at the end of the day, it's your choice, even though kindergarten level or primary, or now that my older one is in secondary, it's still their own choice. It's your future. I would explain to you maybe better way, but you choose it and you take the consequences. And a lot of the time, I love it that when they chose badly or made a mistake, and 10 out of 10 times it's them coming back to me and said, "Oh, Mama, you were right. I made that mistake."
And it's okay to make mistakes because we can learn so much from our mistakes, and it's very character building, isn't it?
To me, it's not okay to make mistakes. It's best to make mistakes.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. You have to. And if you're always correct, you're always right. This is what I do for a living. I create parties. I create celebration for people to have fun. How easy to have fun. How easy to do things celebrating together. But how hard it is to deal with issue together or individually. So I think, you must make mistakes. And this is something that I learned from my parents.
Oh, that's really good. And I think it's very important for people to understand that you can make mistakes. Steph's asking where everyone is on the chat. So we've got 33 people watching. Hi, everyone. Thanks
Hello.
for joining us. And Steph's wondering where you all are. So if you've got a question for Kinny about growing up in Hong Kong or being Chinese, please get on the chat and throw something at us and we'll try and answer it. But in the meantime, I'm aware that sometimes Chinese families will not give the children to the grandparents, but the grandparents can play a large role in raising the children, especially if the Chinese parents go out to work. Is that true?
Yeah, very true. I mean, of course, in Hong Kong, the helper culture has been long enough that they look after the children, but still you will see that there will be a helper and pair with the grandparents. I think personally, from my observation, is not something that they distrust their helper. It's more so that how much that they trust their own parents and how much that they rely on their parents to not just physically looking after them, but at the same time, again, it's something that very automatically that you expect, you assume that your parents would have good influence to your children.
So that's interesting. Oh, thanks. Nanora's just said it's 11:30 where she is in Miami, but we're keeping her up. So thanks for staying up with us, Nanora. And we've got loads of people from all over the world: Bakersfield, California, Dubai, Miami, Shanghai.
Oh,
great.
Wow.
Yeah, so cool. Great to have you all here with us. I think we need to explain for people out there in the world who are listening that it's very common in Hong Kong for people to have what we call helpers. And in fact, there's an amazing film made by Joanna Bowers called The Helper, which talks about the role of helpers in Hong Kong and sort of how we need to embrace them and support them and really feel proud of them. And I think that they're a big part of the culture here in Hong Kong, and they take an important role in helping us work long hours, looking after our houses and looking after our children. Don't you agree?
Very much so. And I'm very, very grateful that in the past 13 years since I have my first child, and then that was the first time that I have a part-time helper and then turned into full-time, I only gone through 2 helpers, and they're both really, really good, and they became part of the family. At the same time, also, other than my own helpers, also in general, of course, there are good ones and bad ones, so does any other workplace, right? But to have this, I see as privilege, that you can concentrate and go out and then work. In Hong Kong culture, people work long hours, and have someone that you trust to look after your children and then allow you to provide a better quality life. And these people, at the end of the day, they have to leave their family and come all the way to Hong Kong and work and live in your house where it's completely different culture.
Yeah, so most of the helpers in Hong Kong are Filipino. Some are from Sri Lanka or Indonesia, but many of them are teachers or lawyers. They've got university degrees and they can't get work in their own countries, and they leave their family and their children and they come out here to Hong Kong. They work looking after families in Hong Kong, and they're just amazing, wonderful people. And there's also a choir called the Unsung Heroes.
Oh,
they're
yes,
fantastic, aren't they? Run by my friend Jane Engelman. And the Unsung Heroes are a domestic helper choir. So check them out on YouTube. They're really amazing. And one of them is just like an amazing singer, and they're really going places. They sang at Clockenflap.
Yes, they did, along with Nile Roger on the main stage one year. It was phenomenal. And then I was so touched and pleased at seeing these things happen. And it's just that brings happiness and joy among whoever you are. And these helpers, they only got 1 day a week off the work, and then seeing them even on our island, sometimes when I walk past and then seeing them having like a little Sunday gathering and having a party, that makes me very, very happy.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? We're very lucky to have them, and is a part of our culture here in Hong Kong.
Absolutely.
It's quite cool. Tell me a bit more about Clockenflap and the work you do there. For the people out there listening all over the world, what is it?
Well, Clockenflap, I would say, is one of the best music and arts festival in Asia. And this year, November 9 to 11. And it's a long battle in Hong Kong to have something like this. But yet, I say battle, but it's a very, very positive battle, because there isn't such culture in Hong Kong in comparison with a lot of places around the world. There's all kinds of music festival. And then people also almost know in the calendar what season is the festival season, but Hong Kong, there isn't. And to be able to be part of such pioneer thing and then nurturing it and then seeing the success as in like that many people coming every year now. And it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So for people in Australia, it's a little bit similar to the Big Day Out, which we've had for, 20 years in Australia. And how many people have you had at Clockenflap over the weekend?
Over the weekend, we have 70, 80,000 people. And to be honest, it depends on the lineup, right? And then what kind of stars and bands and we're bringing in. But yes, I still remember the very first year from 1,200 people.
Yeah, I remember the first year as well, down at Cyberport, where we just sat on the grass and had one little stage. And now there's how many stages?
Now there's 6 stages covering the whole harbourfront in Central, the event space there.
I know, it's absolutely beautiful. Imagine everybody being at a music festival surrounded by the lights and the buildings of Hong Kong. It's just such a stunning venue. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's awe-inspiring, isn't it, to be a part of it? And who are some of the, this might be a tricky question for you because you don't want to leave anyone out, but who are some of the top acts that you've had over the last couple of years? You mentioned Nile Rodgers and the Unsung Heroes. Who else?
We have Massive Attacks last year headlining, and The Prodigy, and then we have New Orders, Primal Scream, De La Soul. You name it.
I've seen all of them. They were great.
Whoever that we can afford, and then we'll try.
And just a quick shout out to Jason and Rosa, who are saying Happy International Day, and Sun Power Podcast. Hi from New Zealand, and I watched your session a couple of hours ago, so it was awesome. Do you feel like that some Chinese families discuss more sensitive issues like mental health issues and sex and sexuality and stuff like that? Or do you think it's something that is swept under the carpet, or it's sort of acknowledged but not really spoken about, or it's okay, or is it not okay? Sorry, that was a terribly worded question.
I get it. And that's okay. The younger generation, the younger parents now, a lot more different, a lot more open about it, because now that you understand the importance to discuss, or at least not to cover it with your children. But yeah, even my generation, I remember that my dad been told off once by, I think, his sister, that why would you chit-chat about these things with your children, especially your daughter? I can't exactly remember what, but then it must be something about tattoo, and then just slightly more in the Chinese or even Asian culture that is like, oh, these things you shouldn't be discussing. And it's just a straight no and no explanation. That's it. But again, in my family, there's nothing that we can't talk about, which I think it's so important. And that makes me and my brother very different. To be honest, even including when we were at the teenage time, we avoid a lot of trouble because our parents, especially my dad, talked about a lot of issues with us. And when you are not so curious or have such kind of force that you need to find out what it is, what does it mean? And then you are a lot more relaxed.
That's so interesting. It's kind of like if things are taboo or out of reach, then kids search for them and they want to find out more about it, and it becomes more exciting for them. But if things are discussed more openly and there are less sort of strict rules necessarily, I mean, kids really still need boundaries. They really benefit from boundaries. But I think you've been very lucky then to grow up in a more sort of progressive, open family.
Yes. I mean, even my parents, if you interview them now, you know, it's nothing that they plan to do it this way. It's just the way they are and how they've been brought up, I guess. And then so how they influence very different.
What do you think are the most positive aspects of Western culture that you take forward in your parenting and then Chinese culture?
From the Western angle first, and more love, more physical love. That is one of the biggest things to me, because I know that my parents love me dearly, love me to bits, and even to this age, and just a phone call away, they would do anything for me. However, the physical side of things is very Asian thing. And
to not be physical, not show physical love, kissing and hugging and stuff like that.
Yes, and I can see that sometimes it's my generation kind of parents, and you almost see the difficulty, the physical difficulty for them to give you a hug. And so that aspect, and I am very big on showing my children, you know, the physical love as well, that they know that I'm even just like a squeeze on the shoulder, it makes such a difference, right? But again, even my parents adopt to this as well, and then they'll be way more kissy, huggy to my children now. So sometimes I say, no, you didn't do it to me when I was little.
Are you jealous?
A bit, yeah.
I think that just shows us as well how we can educate our parents and how everybody can grow and change. People don't have to be completely stuck in their ways. And I think people should never give up sort of trying to get people on board to move forward into being more open about stuff, being more demonstrative and being more loving, because it's very good for our soul.
Yes. And also, if you think of human being as an object as well, we are one of those objects, or life form that you can continuously polish. And there's nothing to stop you to continue polishing yourself and to whatever way, whatever shape. And I'm not talking about plastic surgery, but you know,
forget that. We've had nothing done, folks. Exactly. All natural here.
But I'm just more like how you can improve yourself or how you can change the surrounding, and everything's in your control. The other way round, I found it very sad that if you think, oh, this is me, and then that's it, nothing can change me, or I will not change my mind, and that really narrows your path of your life.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And I think that we can really learn from that. And is there anything that if you could change in your parents now, or if you could educate them or get them on board with anything, is there anything that springs to mind that you'd like to see change, not just with your parents, perhaps older generation in China or Hong Kong?
Money is not everything.
Oh, yeah. Money and prestige are not necessarily the keys to happiness. I believe in Chinese culture, it's super important for parents to get their kids into really prestigious universities and there's a lot of pressure for doctors, lawyers, all those sort of high-flying careers. And the creative ones like you're doing are not valued as much. Is this true?
Yes, it is. I mean, again, excluding my parents, I'm sure that among my uncles and aunties, they're still having a big question mark in their heads. Why am I doing this as a career? And is this something that makes money? And is this something that, in the society that people respect? I'm sure that there is still this big question mark above their head. But having said that, I'm very confident to say that the younger generation of the Chinese parents are very different now. Yes, still, you're living in Hong Kong, and physically or realistically, you can't completely steer away the measure with wealth and, your career and all those things.
Yes, because they're just an important ingrained part of Hong Kong culture, aren't they? They're just there.
Yes. And then at the same time, the good side with the internet and then social media and then the world are so much more open for people to go and see and explore it. And then the good side of it is really open people's eyes and then to understand, there is so many different dimensions in life, and happiness can mean all these different aspects.
And it's not just successful career and money that brings happiness necessarily.
Yes.
If you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you say to her?
I don't know. Hardly think back this way, or what would I say to myself when I was younger?
Maybe something along the lines of being different is okay and don't worry, or you weren't really worried about not fitting in.
I wasn't too worried, or I wasn't in too bad of this state. But maybe I would tell myself, or maybe tip myself a little bit about the future, and then, it's okay to explore more. Or tell myself it's okay to push harder.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Don't be afraid and push harder, because I was already a bit of a rebel. But of course, with my culture, my upbringing and everything. And then I put a lot of stops in front of me.
Yes. And I think we can all learn that taking risks and putting yourself out there can often reap rewards. And if it goes wrong, you're still going to learn from it, like we said earlier about learning from your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so true. Do you ever suffer from any sort of discrimination or any sort of racism in Hong Kong or when you travel around the world?
Not so much. There's no any significant memories in my mind, but I'm sure that it happened to me. But nothing really affects me so much in that aspect. And I used to travel alone quite a lot when I was much younger. But my thinking is, as long as if I'm friendly with people and people see that I'm trying to interact with them, communicate with them, no one would see me as any outcast or, you doing any harm at me. And
I think it just shows how global the world is becoming and how international we are. And so that we're seeing a shift towards acceptance, or not even acceptance, and diversity and inclusion. And I think that's really good, isn't it?
Yes, correct. But at the same time, I am quite weird, maybe in a way that I really don't mind.
You're not weird, Kinny.
I really don't mind what name that people call me. And some friends will be telling me that, today in London, and then someone called me this and basically a bit racist. I said, well, I've been called that too, but I never feel offended because it doesn't change who I am. And I guess this is something that is planted from a young age back in the secondary school kind of time. That's something that my dad hammer in our head. It's like, okay, they can call you a pig, they can call you this, they can call you that, but it doesn't really change you. It change who you are by just people calling you this name. And I'm doing the same thing with my boys as well. And
it builds resilience, doesn't it?
Yes. And
resilience is important in young people today.
Yes. At the same time, also, to me, I think that this is also helps you to think about who you are and then, and how you present yourself to the world, to the society, community. And then if you know that you're truly decent and a good person, you can call me whatever name. Name is just a name.
Water off a duck's back, as we say in Australia.
That's quite, it would be quite convenient. If you call me some kind of name and my hair change color, then, I save a lot of money.
If only.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about the fortune telling that's really quite important in Chinese culture. Like there's this temple called Wong Tai Sin Temple where you can go along and meet a fortune teller and you shake some sticks as well, don't you? And see a fortune stick comes out as well. Tell me a bit about that. And have you done that?
Yes, I've done it twice and different age. And then, to be honest, it's more out of curiosity and fun. And how does it work? So you go to the temple and then you bow and then you do the ritual and then you pick up one of these bamboo sticks and then you shake it, facing the god, and then it's basically the god will give you that particular stick, and then you go to the fortune teller and then they will tell you, what that means. But you will have to tell them what you're asking for, what you're looking for, because that thing can mean anything. To me, it's out of fun. It's more like, okay, I will ask a special question and see how you can make out a story from this, little
from the
stick.
weird question. Whereas I just go in and go, I'm looking for love. Oh, that's so cool. If you could be anything in the whole world, regardless of your skills and talents, what would it be? Are you doing what you love? Would you still be doing what you're doing now, or would you love to do something completely different?
I am very, very lucky that I'm doing what I love and I'm passionate about. But there are so many other things I'm passionate about. Of course, those are down to my post-retirement list of things.
What are some of the things that you'd love to do in post-retirement or later on in your life?
Yeah, currently I'm just starting and hope that we can get the first session started, which is writing up stand-up comedy material.
Cool.
And especially living in Hong Kong, and there is just all these diversity and different culture mixed together and generates lots of funny stories. And these are the things that I just note down in my notepad. And I really hope that one day I can, if not perform, but at least maybe I can co-write with someone, and maybe someone who's got much better stage presence, and then he or she can do it for me.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. That'd be great. What are your hopes for your children in the future? What would you like most for them?
2 decent people that at least you're not part of destroying the world, and hopefully they can do the other way around, that can contribute back to the world, however small that is. But I think nowadays, and it becomes a very, very rare quality, that people think about themselves less, as in like what they get less, and then really think about what they can do more. And it sounds a bit like, very strict mom, and what can you do to the world, and then contribute. But it's from very small. What can you contribute to your family? Not in any monetary way, but it's as small as washing the dishes, and then one day how you can help your community, like after the big typhoon, right? Have you thought about not just looking after your own garden, but look out and see if anyone else needs help, and then you can help. Maybe you can't sow a big tree, but maybe you can start moving some small lots.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw in the news, like Hong Kong was literally cleaned up in 2 days after this massive typhoon, because everybody got on board and helped. And that's just something that shows about Hong Kong culture, how supportive and caring it is. It's really, really such a lovely place to live, isn't it? I think we're going to have to wrap up now. All the listeners out there will check out Hong Kong Confidential, my podcast, and it's on Stitcher and Apple Podcasts, and I've got a webpage under the same name, and you can get it anywhere you get your podcast. So please check out Hong Kong Confidential. It's very cool.
And we'll talk about everything.
Thanks everyone for listening. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Hong Kong Confidential is brought to you by Teresa's Turkish Towels. Teresa imports the finest 100% Turkish cotton towels that dry very quickly, making them perfect for Hong Kong's humid climate. Say goodbye to the traditional smelly and stinky towels and try the colourful and fresh selections available online or in Teresa's Wan Chai store. Use the promo code CONFIDENTIAL online or mention this podcast when you visit in person to receive $100 off your entire order when you order 2 or more towels. With 100% satisfaction guaranteed or your money back, the only thing you've got to lose are the musty smells that permeate traditional terry towels. Visit www.hkturkish.com in order to get the address and directions to Teresa's semi-hidden location. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.